Friday, November 14th, 2025. That's the date. That's how it's going to go. I'm showing up, putting in the work, but I'm telling you now, I'm taking that L. We'll see what happens after, but that's...
Gervonta Davis has recently put on significant weight, and Jake Paul isn't holding back in criticizing him. Paul has been firing shots, accusing Davis of being enhanced, and even mocking a potential loss. Reacting to recent footage of Davis training, Jake pointed out how noticeably larger Davis looks compared to his usual form, which he claims is raising red flags. "Yeah, you're naturally small. We're going to check you for PEDs," Paul said, implying suspicion of performance-enhancing drugs. He went on to taunt Davis further, saying he bulked up just to get embarrassed in the ring.
Jake Paul, Gervonta Davis. That's the state of boxing.
Yeah, that's
right now.
crazy.
Let that sink in.
Jake
That's
Paul,
boxing right now.
Gervonta Davis is so crazy. 135 versus 200. That is so nuts.
They're all expedition.
None of them are.
Yeah, they're exhibition.
Jake Paul has been closely watching Gervonta tank Davis, looking for any weakness he can exploit. And lately, he believes he's found one: the weight. According to ESPN, Davis is moving up nearly 60 pounds for his upcoming fight, a staggering increase for someone who typically competes at 135 pounds. This isn't just a weight jump, it's a complete transformation of his physique. And when you see him now, the change is undeniable.
Boxers right now. I think that fight there, because of Tank's skill level, it's like it makes it fair, even though he's not. The weight difference is crazy. Really and truly, bro, Jake Paul should not land a punch on Tank. This guy's one of the greatest.
Even during their face-off, Gervonta Tank Davis didn't resemble the same lightweight who famously flattened Ryan Garcia. His frame appeared noticeably thicker, with a broader chest and a neck packed with added muscle. Even beneath his camo jacket, it was clear he had filled out significantly. That visual sparked the ongoing debate. Fans on X quickly began sharing side-by-side comparison photos, highlighting how the once sleek, explosive power puncher now looked like someone who'd been lifting heavy weights for months. But that's exactly what this training camp appears to be focused on: function over flash. The new version of Tank isn't built to impress with aesthetics. He's built to endure punishment. Going up against a natural cruiserweight like Jake Paul means Davis won't just be dodging punches. He'll need to absorb the full force behind them. Paul fights close to 200 pounds and throws with serious power. In response, Tank has bulked up strategically, sacrificing a bit of speed in exchange for added durability. Training footage out of his camp reinforces that message. His team, including longtime trainer Calvin Ford, understands that under exhibition rules, with heavier gloves and no strict weight limit, Tank has the freedom to put on size without the usual concerns about making weight.
Jake Paul, Gervonta Davis. I know on Instagram you call it a circus.
Yeah, this is boxing is slowly turning into the WWE. That's what I think.
Does Tank Davis have a chance?
Yes, but
yeah?
I don't even want to talk about it. Don't ask me questions like that again.
However, even with the added bulk, Tank Davis has been warned about the unique power Jake Paul brings to the ring, this time by someone who's felt it firsthand. Former UFC champion Tyron Woodley, who faced Paul twice in 2021, knows exactly how dangerous Jake's punches can be. Their second bout ended in a brutal second-round knockout. A punch so clean and decisive that ESPN Ringside named it Knockout of the Year. It was a moment that silenced critics and confirmed Paul's knockout power is very real. Now, Woodley is offering Davis some advice, and coming from someone who's been on the receiving end, his words carry serious weight.
The concern is, the gloves. You understand what I'm saying? Because we don't fight in 12-ounce gloves. We don't use 12-ounce gloves. That's training gloves, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, that's 2 pounds away from Jake. He fights in 10s. Tank fighting 8s. So
My advice to Tank? I would say take Jake seriously. Tyron Woodley told Fruity King. Speaking from experience, Woodley emphasized that even though Jake Paul doesn't have the same amateur or professional pedigree as Davis, underestimating him would be a mistake. For a fighter that's on Tank's level to go into a fight with somebody who, on paper, hasn't had the same career, he needs to recognize Jake has the motivation to prove people wrong. It's not just talk. Woodley has already learned what happens when you give Paul too much room, and it ended with him on the canvas. He acknowledged that while Tank is a powerful puncher, Moving up to face someone fighting at 195 pounds is an entirely different challenge. It's a whole different level of power, and you've got to be able to get close to him, he explained. His reach advantage is going to have you by at least 5 or 6 inches, and Jake's smart enough to keep you away. If you keep forcing the issue, you can walk onto a punch. His final word of advice was clear. So, I would take it seriously.
133 pounds, a 5'7" wingspan. Tank fighting me would be a fairer matchup. We're basically the same size. And you wonder why fans think Jake's fights are rigged? Because every time we see some nonsense like this, it feels like WWE with boxing gloves. Here's the kicker though. Jake threatened to sue anyone who calls his fights rigged.
That's the kind of warning Gervonta Davis can't afford to overlook. Despite his elite skill set and reputation as one of boxing's most explosive finishers, he's stepping into a size challenge unlike anything he's faced before. Jake Paul may not hold a world title, but he's a naturally bigger fighter, one who's been throwing full power shots at cruiserweight and beyond. In this matchup, Davis isn't just dealing with an opponent, he's dealing with a weight class, and that changes everything. Even with Gervonta Davis's clear power advantage in his natural division, stepping up nearly 60 pounds, as reported by ESPN, completely changes the equation. It's not just about raw strength, it's about timing, movement, and how punches land when the opponent's body carries that much more weight. That's why Davis's camp has put such a strong emphasis on strength and conditioning. This time around, he's visibly bulked up, his arms, shoulders, and chest noticeably thicker. And that transformation isn't for show. It's a calculated move for survival. The lightweight champion now looks far more solid than usual. He's still shorter, yes, but his frame carries more mass, clearly signaling that he's preparing to withstand the physical demands of facing someone like Jake Paul. Under standard boxing sanctioning, this fight wouldn't even be allowed. The gap between 135 and 195 pounds is simply too wide. But as an exhibition, the rules are far more flexible. With no official weight limit and no title at stake, Davis has the freedom to add size strategically, ensuring he's ready to meet Paul's natural power head-on.
Has gone too far. Jake Paul is taking on Gervonta Tank Davis in an exhibition bout this November. The fight will be taking place in Atlanta between the cruiserweight and the 135-pounder, nearly a 100-pound difference between the two guys. This is absolutely insane. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments down below.
Woodley's words echo what many analysts have been quietly pointing out. Gervonta Tank Davis can't rely solely on his trademark explosiveness in this fight. Facing an opponent with a 6-inch reach advantage and nearly 60 extra pounds, closing the distance will require far more than speed and aggression. It'll take precision, timing, and patience. If Davis rushes in recklessly, one clean right hand from Jake Paul could end his night early, just as it did for Tyron Woodley.
He's talking about fighting Joshua, which is heavyweight, and now he's saying about fighting Tank. Nah, this can't be. It's Netflix as well. I need to go and do some checks and see if like the main pages have posted this, but Jake Paul's posted it. It says Friday, November 14th. It's in Atlanta.
Still, not everyone is buying into the idea that Jake Paul has a real shot at beating Gervonta Davis. Boxing champion Claressa Shields has made her stance clear. Speaking on $1 million worth of game, she said, "I think Shakur beats Gervonta Davis. And I used to think Devin Haney. I think Devin can outbox Tank, but once Tank catches him, it's going to be a long night. But the only person I think that can beat him is Shakur." Shields knows what dominance looks like. She's a 2-time Olympic gold medalist and the first boxer, male or female, to become undisputed champion in 3 separate weight classes during the 4-belt era. Her respect for Davis runs deep, and while she believes he'll come out on top in this matchup, she's not expecting it to be an easy or clean victory. Tank, listen, you better whoop Jake or I'm really going to have a problem with you, Claressa Shields warned. No ifs and buts. You better do it. You shouldn't have signed a contract. She added that while she thinks Davis will win, it won't be pretty. Jake will use his weight, fight dirty. And Shields isn't even sure Tank's punches will be able to hurt him because he's so big.
Could land one big punch, and Tank being so much smaller, he just can't handle the power.
Nah, not at all. I think Tank is, he's been boxing his whole life. He's been boxing since a kid, so I doubt like that's gonna be an issue or a problem. I think Jake is good for where he's at, but I think it's just levels.
Do you see a more likely chance that Tank wins by decision, or?
That last concern is one shared by many. Whether Gervonta Davis's knockout power will actually translate against an opponent that much larger. Davis has built his career on ending fights with a single clean shot, but doing that against someone who fights 50 or 60 pounds heavier is an entirely different challenge. Even with heavier gloves, Jake Paul's natural bulk gives him a significant advantage in absorbing punches. The fight itself has already sparked plenty of controversy. Just recently, MVP Promotions, which manages Jake Paul, withdrew its application for an event license in Georgia. The Georgia Athletic and Entertainment Commission told USA Today that MVP had abandoned attempts to get the fight sanctioned. Rick Thompson, the commission's chairman, later confirmed the withdrawal and explained their reasoning. They probably assessed the situation and concluded that the weight difference was too great.
Looking good in this. I don't know how it is. It looks to me David and Goliath, but David got skill and Goliath doesn't, but I don't know how it's going to work out. But if for some reason it winds up being a really fun event and it has tons and tons of millions and millions and millions of viewers, when Gervonta Davis goes back.
That kind of comment only intensified the backlash. Critics within boxing circles have been outspoken about the risks and spectacle of matching a career lightweight against a natural cruiserweight. Jake Paul has fought as heavy as 200 pounds and even stepped into the heavyweight range during his exhibition fight against Mike Tyson last November. In stark contrast, Gervonta Davis weighed in at just 135 pounds for his most recent official bout. This vast weight disparity has many questioning the safety and fairness of the matchup. So the skepticism is understandable, but it's also what makes this matchup so compelling. Despite all the talk about weight, reach, and power, Davis remains the favorite because of his skill and pedigree. He's sharper, faster, and far more experienced inside the ring. Tank has to prove he can absorb punches from a man who's used to knocking out bigger opponents, while Jake has to show that his size and strength can overcome elite timing and footwork. Ultimately, the outcome will hinge on who adjusts first, the smaller man fighting to survive, or the bigger man trying to land the clean, decisive shot.
I'm just getting warmed up, but this will certainly shut up a lot more people. Each fight has done that so far. Only 5 years as a pro, and feels like the last fight I had was the end of chapter 1. This is the beginning of chapter 2, and I'm only 28 years old. I have a lot more to prove, and once I beat this guy, more people will shut up. But at the end of the day, I'm really still just getting warmed up in the sport, and I'm going to show how.
David Benavidez, the undefeated WBC light heavyweight champion, has also shared his thoughts on the fight. Although he doesn't entertain exhibitions himself, when asked about this matchup, his tone carried a mix of curiosity and caution, as if he sensed something wild was on the horizon. "It's a trip," Benavidez said. "Jake's big, he's been improving, but Tank's a killer." That's the prevailing sentiment across boxing right now. No one quite knows how to feel. Half the sport believes this fight shouldn't even be happening, while the other half can't wait to see how far Gervonta's relentless aggression can take him against a man nearly 70 pounds heavier.
Bro, you can't be mad at somebody for doing what they feel is best for them.
Will it impact Tank's legacy if Jake Paul were like to beat him or even like knock him out?
Dude, Tank's a 3-division world champion, 4-time 3-division world champion. At the end of it, bro, you can't take anything away from him. Bro, you can't be mad at somebody for doing what they feel is best for them. It's the same way Roach feels Tank is the best option for him. Same way.
Because if there's one thing that's been impossible to ignore lately, it's just how big Tank has been looking. With every new clip and training photo, he moves differently. He's no longer walking around like a lightweight. He's eating, lifting, and carrying himself like someone who expects to run into a wall of power and isn't afraid of the impact.
Jake Paul versus Tank Davis, they just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big. Tank ain't gonna be able to get in from that jab. Jake land one good punch on.
And after all the warnings he's received about Jake's power, Tank would be crazy not to take them seriously. But Benavidez's perspective flips the usual narrative. Instead of focusing solely on the weight gap, he's curious about what happens if Tank actually lands the first punch. this isn't going to be one of those exhibitions where the fighters just play around. As Benavidez put it, Tank ain't going to dance. He's going to try to hurt him every single round.
Jake he ain't gonna fight back. He said, so I said, you gotta take him serious. You get what I'm saying? Because he talked about, he had you on a hit list before this fight even happened. So his mental is on you. So you have to take him serious.
And that's what gives this fight its strange energy. Two worlds colliding, both men with something to prove, and neither willing to coast. Jake Paul has doubled down on the narrative, staring into cameras and telling reporters, I'm going to knock this guy out. The kind of line you say so many times, it starts to sound inevitable. If it happens, it would almost certainly be one of the most viral knockouts in boxing history.
3 to 4, probably wake up probably like 11, get my run in, and then eat, probably lay back down, and then wake up probably like 6 or 7, get...
Jake has been deep into a full training camp for weeks now, steadily bulking back up toward the 190 to 200 pound range. By fight night, he's likely to step into the ring around 210 pounds, facing a man who typically walks around at about 150 pounds on a heavy day. The optics alone are wild, but for Jake, that's part of the message he wants to send. He's embracing the size, the risk, and the hype, knowing that if he manages to flatten Tank, the internet will absolutely lose its mind.
Tank looked very uncomfortable facing off. He just did. I've seen other face-off this Tank done. He gets in their face and they're intense and he looks good. He looked very meager up there. You've had 8 fights and you're gonna go tangle with Tank Davis. And the story instantly comes out. Jake is so much bigger. There is such a compliment to Jake within that insult. It is meant.
And to his credit, Jake is doing everything he can to make sure no one can claim the fight is staged. He's pushed for full-on random drug testing, insisting there be no excuses or rigging, just 2 guys fighting it out. But even with all the extra muscle, Jake's been playing chess behind the scenes, calling out names that raised eyebrows even within Tank's own camp.
3 to 4, probably wake up probably like 11, get my run in, and then eat, probably lay back down, and then wake up probably like 6 or 7.
Both men clearly plan to hurt each other. Both are talking knockouts. And whatever pretense of a friendly exhibition existed is long gone. The timing is either perfect or reckless, depending on who you ask. Tank comes in fresh off a dominant run, yet nobody expected him to jump this far in weight. Jake, meanwhile, is trying to reclaim credibility after the Tyson fallout, and knows the fastest route back is another shocking win over a real pro.